Welcome to the Insta Runners Roundup podcast with me, Bob Burrow, and today we have Jace Wood.
Hello.
We have Mike Houston.
Hello.
We have Jimmy Gow.
Hello.
Davey McCracken.
Hello.
And we also have a very special guest. We have Lesley Graham with us today.
Hi. Woo woo.
So, Les is on to talk about the Glasgow to Edinburgh Ultra, the GB Ultras race. But first, Les, for people that don't know about your backstory and your running history, can you give us a wee brief intro to who is Les?
I don't know how brief I can be. I'm normally edited out quite a lot when I give a brief anything, so feel free to cut. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I definitely wasn't always a runner. I wasn't into running or fitness in any capacity 9, 10 plus years ago. It wasn't really until after I had Layla, and she's 11 now, that I started running just to I don't know, lose a bit of weight again after being pregnant and find myself. It's a kind of typical story, really, I guess, of that, where joined a gym. I was lucky enough I had a creche. I could stick her in on a Monday and I would go and hide on the treadmill in the gym and stay away from the weights and do a quick run, go to a spin class, and then leave without kind of checking out any of the scary people in the gym who actually looked like they knew what they were doing. And I guess one bit that sticks out in my mind, there was one day I was on the treadmill and there was a guy on the treadmill beside me, and he wasn't like your typical runner. He wasn't like a fit guy, just this big guy. He started chatting to me about how he had just run a marathon, and it was the hardest thing that he had ever done. It turned out it was Loch Ness Marathon, which obviously was just on at the weekend there. And he went on to describe in great detail about how he'd been rubbish at his training. It was super hard. He hit the hills at mile 18 and hit a wall, and everyone was hitting the wall, and he just made it sound like the worst experience in the world. And I can remember running on that treadmill beside him thinking, I want to do that. And I want to do that and not hit that wall. At some point, I want to do that. And at that point, I was running just 5K. I didn't have a clue what I was doing. I was going out and running as fast as I could all the time. And just, that was it, really. My fitness, I guess, in that kind of period of time was quite sporadic. I would do the typical yo-yo dieting thing, probably signed up for my one half marathon a year that I would run for charity. And I would train for that one half marathon, but that would be it. And then the rest of the year, my fitness would take a nosedive. It wasn't really until 2019, my sister held me accountable for a wee 8-week mini cut as a holiday book for Mexico that I was taking Layla on, and I wanted to feel better about myself. She held me accountable for 8 weeks, and I guess that 8 weeks of consistently checking in with someone just got me. I started lifting weights, and I could see that positive change in me and my body and in my mind. And after a wee while, working out all the time, I decided that I would go and do my PT qualifications, to go and help others kind of feel the same way as myself. I set up my Instagram around about that time, and I was quite conscious of who I followed, so that I was really just streamlining the content that I wanted to consume. I kind of had that whole idea of if I immersed myself in the people around me that I wanted to be or inspired me, then there was more chance of me sticking with it and keeping myself accountable. I used to just post I post every day, and I still do it now. It's literally just a diary for me. I'm still here, I'm showing up, I'm keeping consistent. And that was kind of 2019 into 2020, and then COVID struck. And I had put so much effort into myself, and I felt brilliant by this point about myself. And then I had a total panic attack about what I was going to do during COVID. The gyms are shut. What am I going to do? I panic bought a treadmill for the house. And I decided that I would set myself a goal to keep myself accountable. And I decided I was going to run one half marathon a month every day, not every day, sorry, one half marathon a month for a year. Which actually, like, at the time, that was a big deal. Like, I would do one half marathon a year. This was now me committing to doing like one a month, which now I'll think about that and you think, you do that in your training, like, you don't even think about it. Like, there's where the progress is. But at the time, that was a huge big deal. So I ended up, if, like, the weather was poor and it was icy, I would do the half marathon on the treadmill, but then, like, I made up this ridiculous rule in my head that it wouldn't count. So the ones that I did on the treadmill during that year, I had to then do at the end outside. So it ended up being ridiculous that I did it for 18 months. And at that point, I thought, like, where is this going? Like, I can't just keep doing this every single month. And that was when the guy on the treadmill back, like, 8 years previous, popped into my head, and I was like, do you know what? I'm going to sign up for that Loch Ness Marathon. At this point, I thought, like, I'm approaching 40. I want to run a marathon before I'm 40. Like, and my training's been great. Like, this last 18 months, I think I can do it now. So I had given myself like a year. I signed up like to the day that marathon was ran. I signed up for the following year. And I wrote myself my own training plan for it. My training by this point was like very CrossFit-y, functional fitness. Like, I'd got into my hill walking, doing a bit of boxing, all this sort of thing. So, like, I wrote myself a plan that was like very hybrid, if we want to use the word. I know that our audience loves a hybrid. But that's what it was. Like, there was a right mix of like everything in there. It wasn't your traditional like running type plan that I would follow now. I was in the habit of switching out long runs for big long days in the hills, that sort of thing. And it was just like, again, just me consuming everything that I loved to train for this marathon. Fast forwarded to the Loch Ness Marathon, and really the goal was just to run that one marathon before I'm 40, tick it off. Like, I had a loose idea of like a sub 4, down about the 4 hour mark. I hadn't done any like proper speed work. I was counting like my WODs in a CrossFit class as my interval sessions. Like, it was very, very tweaked to suit myself. And then I turned up on the day, and like, it was one of those like symbolic moments. I mean, Loch Ness Marathon anyway is like stunning. They bus you down to like the end of the loch, and you're dumped in the middle of nowhere. And I had rocked up with like my big old green parka jacket that I had bought when I was pregnant with Layla. And it was kind of like a symbol for me, because like when I was in those days, my mental health was like in the gutter. It was an unhappy relationship. I wasn't happy with myself. Like, I wasn't fit. Just things weren't great. So that jacket was like a big symbol. And stood on the start line. It was like the perfect running conditions for a marathon. The pipe band went down. They started playing Caledonia on the speakers. I took off my parka and folded it to the sides and put it in the grass and patted it. And it was like, yes, it's like a symbol of being like, right, I can do this. I ended up running way better that day than I'd ever imagined. I tagged along with a guy who, well, he tagged along with me really about 5K, and he was like, you're running strong. Do you mind if I like just hang on to you here? And I told him I was going for like round about a 4 hour, and he's like, wow, you're going to do much better than that. Hit the hills at like 20 miles in, and he turned to me and he was like, my legs aren't going to be able to keep up with your pace anymore. Like, you go. There's only 10K left. And his words were, you can always run 10K. And seeing any race now, any big marathon now, whenever I get to that 10K point, I'm like, I remember his words, because you can always run 10K, you can always run 5K. Just funny, because like back in the beginning, I couldn't always run 10K. Like, again, that would have been a huge deal to do a 10K. So yeah, I finished. It was that whole like elation of just finishing the marathon. I didn't even care what the time was, which is like, for me now, it's like a whole other world. I didn't have a clue about pacing. I had turned up and bought like a block of those 2 blocks for energy at the expo. Like, I hadn't trained with gels, like nothing. I just turned up, ran my heart out, and I ended up running a 3:37, which I which I found out on the way home in the car with my dad that was good for age for London. And then I thought, oh, wait a minute. Like, I was only going to run one marathon before I'm 40. Now I'd be a good for age for London. Can I be that dick that's got a London, time and doesn't run London? So, yeah. And then in the April, looked at ran London, thought, right, that's it. I'll just run London. That'll get me my London Marathon medal. Ended up PBing at London, did a 3:33. Turns out it's a Boston qualifier. And then it's like, oh, you can't be that dick that's got a Boston qualifier. People train for years to get a Boston qualifier. Like, you've got to do it. So then, like, it just spiraled, really. And then this year especially, it's been like just one thing after another. Like, I joined a running club back in like 2022, just before Loch Ness Marathon, and through then kind of did lots of cross country events. But like all that time, I've kept my gym going. I've done like 3 High Rocks events, other fitness competitions. Like, I love my hills. Proper counting up the Munros, big ass hill days. Like did the Welsh 3000s this year with a group of folk that are just the best people ever. That's a huge challenge. Like, you've got to do 15 highest peaks in Wales under 24 hours. We did it in a sub 20. Like, all these things, like, I just crave them now. And again, like, some of it is like trying to beat myself and beat my times, but for the majority of it, it's like what makes me feel good. And I just crave that, like, that feeling that you get after you've achieved something for yourself. It's amazing. So yeah, this year I ended up running 3 marathons in 3 months, which is ridiculous because I trained my ass off for Boston. I was planning going out there to run a 3:15. At 16k in, my foot went over on somebody's water cup, and I thought it was broken. I managed to keep running. I finished the marathon. In my head, I was like, I can't come out here and have bought all this merch and not finish the marathon. Like, I want to go home dressed like a unicorn. So I finished the marathon. I ran it in 3:35, which is mental because I thought my foot was broken. Whisked into the emergency tent in a wheelchair, like a total loser style. My foot was like massive. And I thought, like, I've got unfinished business here. Like, 3:35 was not what I came out here for. The experience was amazing. Like, I would go on and on about it, and the clothes are amazing because clearly I wear them all the time. But like, it wasn't what I had gone out there for. So maybe me just impulsively then booked another marathon. Did it again. I hadn't really looked into it and thought about it. It was like 4 weeks later. Down in Lake Windermere. It's like super hilly, up and down. I ended up just running it for fun, and then booked another one, which ended up being the Blast Sunset Marathon, which was just epic. And I got my PB there, so I was really, I managed to like finally do what I set out to do. So I did 3:26 at Blast, came first female. It was a mental night with the weather, but like, I think as well what made it is there was like so many people who I knew were there as well, and with a half going on at the same time, like, just the vibes were awesome. And I think if anything that I would take from the whole journey is the fact that I used to go and do all these things myself. So I spent years like just going out solo in the hills, going out running myself, going to the gym myself, not really, having people to do things with. And I don't ever have that anymore. Like, I can be out in hills with people. I have people to run with. There'd be people there at my back regardless. And if anything, from this whole journey, that's the one thing that I could bottle, because because of that, I would be the biggest cheerleader in any room. But I think it's really important that you cheer for yourself as well. And you've got other people that are cheering for you too, because like there's a huge big journey there, and sometimes people only see the bit of you, running out there and getting PBs and, smashing your workouts and all these things, but there's like a big bit of that like still is the person from 10 years ago that thinks, wow, can I do that? Like, is that possible? So yeah, it's been like a bit of a whirlwind journey, the whole marathon things, like, kind of just taking arms and legs. And I thought really while I was on a roll this year, like I did those 3 marathons, And then I went to Loch Ness 24 for the second time this year and ran 120k at that solo. So I thought, why not just sign up, do this ultra? Like, I remember last year lying in my bed watching the start line footage of the runners all stood in the rain, getting absolutely pelted on, like brutal conditions. And again, like the absolute idiot psychopath in my head, lying there in my cozy bed thinking, I want to really do that. So after Loch Ness, I thought, I'm just going to sign up for it. I feel like my fitness is there this year. Why not just go and do and see what I can do? Like, no expectations. And I think that's like the beauty of it, is just kind of going and testing your body and seeing what you're capable of. And yeah, I just love it. So I'm really buzzing.
It definitely shows your enthusiasm, as I'm sure everyone can hear, comes out. But even like your Instagram posts and your videos, you're always smiling, and you're always, you turn up to these events because you love it.
Yeah, no, I do. And I think like it's not just there running for me, like you're running and it's for what everybody's achieving. Like a couple of weeks ago, I went down to the Great North Run and did a pacer role there as an official job, and it was amazing. Like okay, yeah, I helped a bunch of people get a 1:45 half marathon, but like I got so much out of that for myself, just being there in the buzz and seeing everybody else feel like they've really achieved something. And yeah, like I love the whole thing. I love seeing other people happy. I love other people's, making a difference to their fitness. And yeah, it's great. So I think what I need to watch this weekend is that I don't get too excited and start running too quickly. Because I know
we'll look to AB there. I don't know.
I know for a fact I'm going to be running along, like being really annoying, talking to everybody, and then be like, oh crap, okay, need to slow down. So, which I know actually sounds like a pure dickhead problems, but yeah, that is my problem.
You'll see that though, there'll be this group at the front. And that's how what Michael says, well, you'll be fine with your pace because there'll be this group at the front that are all vapor flies, a vest, and like the smallest bags ever, and they just go. They're like off 6-minute miles, they're gone. And then there's like everybody else behind them just kind of like running along, dawdling along. So I wouldn't worry about setting off too fast. You'll be fine.
Oh no, I'm genuinely worried about setting off too fast. Like I feel I'll be in with those vaporfly guys just for the sheer party of it. Like that's what at Alloa in March, which was supposed to be a half marathon train and run, like well placed before my Boston Marathon. I ended up stood on the start line going, I just want like a really strong run. And then ran the first 8K like a Kenyan athlete, and then, hated myself for the rest of the thing. I can see the exact same thing happening. So
I remember
I thought an ultra runner.
Alloa Marathon. I remember seeing you at the end of Alloa Marathon. It was the half marathon, and it was definitely the case. You had looked like you'd went out far too hot coming down that up the wheel last hill and then doing the bit.
I got a PB that day though, so I mean it wasn't all bad.
Problem will be though, if you got a wee bit too hot at this one, you've got another, I don't know, 40 odd miles to go. So you can hate yourself for a lot longer.
We've touched on quite a few well-organised races, so it might be a good point to pivot and talk about Mike's race. That maybe wasn't as well-organised. I don't know if Mike and Jimmy want to tell us a bit about the Ochil 100.
You see, after listening to that intro from Les there, I don't feel qualified to really talk about much. That's a lot more impressive than what we've done. But yeah, Jimmy can jump in with things, because no doubt I'll have forgotten with some things, and obviously he's got the support crew. Jesus Christ. So I'm
Just a big massive list for those since the podcast, Jimmy.
But yeah, this has got to be the worst event in terms of organisation that I've been in. It's my 14th ultra, the 4 marathons and 14 ultras. The first DNF on my list. No one likes getting a DNF. It's going to happen at some point. It happens to us all, especially when you play the long distance mileage game. But it was a farce from the start. Obviously, we spoke about the email that only came down 6 days before. That was the only email I got from it. There was no, I got 3 or 4 emails previous for merchandise to try and sell that. That was the only email 6 days before. But on the day, right from registration. So we couldn't find registration to start with. It was in a corner of Stirling Uni at the Institute of Sport. There was no signposts to it, nothing. We found it was out the boot of the race director's car with your details scribbled on the back of a brown envelope. Got given my race number along with the words of, you'll probably just have to hold on to that because we've got no safety pins. We put them in the wrong vehicle. And when you've signed up to 100 miles, you can't even provide safety pins. There's concerns from the officers like, shit, what am I gonna do? Like, I might die. But
Mike,
yeah,
what was the cost of the race for what you're obviously used to expecting for the value is kind of what I'm looking for.
I can't remember. It's around 100, maybe.
And you're not getting any safety pins and
No safety pins. I mean, they did manage to provide them because the RD's wife came along finally. But yeah, you don't really expect to be given your race number trackers out the back of an envelope from the boot of somebody's car for something that is this big. You know, it's not a 10K or a half marathon. It's 100 miles you've signed up to do. The professionalism from the start is concerning, to say the least.
Aye, so just to touch on what Mike said, so it's like, this is 100 miles. This is like a big event. Like, this is huge. This could be someone's, like, A race. Like, it's not like a half. I'm not, didn't get me wrong, I'm not going to have a half, but it's 100 miles. That's a big fucking distance. There's not many people can do that. So you're starting off in Edinburgh Uni. So whoever's never been there, it's like a great setting, beautiful place. So I still like loads of place to go. And you're up this little like alleyway at the back of like the institute in the middle of nowhere. And we parked the car and stuff. And Andy got out to go and find where it was and went into like the big kind of swimming complex, which is like the National Institute for like swimmers and cyclists and stuff. And he asked, do you know where the reg is for the 100 mile? And the guy's like, oh, I think there is a race on, but I've absolutely no idea where it is. And you're like, not even an email sent out to everybody to say, by the way, it's over here, direct people to here. There was no big signs. There was literally nothing. And then as like Mike said, as I'm walking down it, it's like some kind of dodgy deal. There's two guys with their boot open, just like handing out stuff. And I'm like, this is absolutely wild.
There's
Like,
no start line either. No starting arch, no starting mats, no start line. So it's a case of we'll start kind of around about here, and 3, 2, 1, go.
So,
But
so imagine sorry,
you sure? Is this company or these guys, have they organised races that you've done before, Mike, that you had any experience of them that, you know, this is not their norm and they've just had a wee off weekend, day, night, whatever? Or is this a kind of new mob that's trying to start out?
No, so it's We Run Events, WEE Run Events. The Ochil 1350 have ran since 2017, so they're not new. They do a few other events. The Sidlaws that we ran last November, that's run by these guys. But I think you speak to quite a few people in previous years, communication and organisation seems to be an ongoing issue, but I didn't think it would be this bad for something this big. You'd hope that they'd have a little bit more air of detail.
Have you got any idea if the 30 and the 50 had the same issues, or did they go all right, or did they no?
I didn't see the 50 because I was too late.
Obviously.
Me and Andy arrived at the 50, and it was like so they can put on events, but this is why I've written down here 100 miles just an afterthought, because you arrived at the 50, there was banners, there was start lines, there was like flags, there was an area where you could go inside if the weather was bad. They had coffee, cakes, a registration table, merchandise, loads of numerous like volunteers running around doing stuff. They had your drop bag area that was going into a van that was getting shipped off. They had a proper race brief. They had a guy with a drone. They had a guy taking photos, and I was like, imagine like they even had half that at the 100, whereas they obviously can do it, but I don't know if like the 50 and the 30s maybe they're bread and butter, and the 100's just like an easy kind of, we'll just put that on because it was classed as like self-supported. So we'll leave them to it. They'll do the first 50 themselves, and then they can join the party with the rest of the 50, which I just thought it came across as a bit like an afterthought, which was a shame because I'll get to it at the end, but there's points to it that could be great.
Well, suppose it's like the blast are doing the water leaf into they're doing the half and the full, Jace, that you're doing. And that's not going to be an afterthought. Like, blast will do that properly.
The with that, the start and finish is obviously in the same place, and I think we're only running an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours maximum. Obviously with the different sides of it, but I mean, my initial thought there, and what you're saying, Jimmy, is that because there was only 4 of them, they've had or didn't want to use any budget that they've received for the entries on, logistics of moving the arches, etc., to where Mike and everybody else was starting. That would be what would do it for me. And Bob, you're bang on. I don't think Kat would do that. Even see if Kat had one runner in that marathon down there, she wouldn't let that happen. She would, they would be as important as the other 200 that are doing the half marathon probably. That's why I was kind of wondering if there were just a new start company, because that's not very fair, because as you're saying, Jimmy, A races, the amount of work that's probably went into that for everybody deserves a lot better than that probably.
You're right, but the thing is, they had 10 signed up, 7 were meant to show up, and 4 turned up. And the year before, I think, or when they did it before, it was
No,
I think
2.
like 2. So say 6 people in total have done it. So you want to grow this. So you want to make this as like exceptional for these people as possible. And because you've got a smaller number, you should be able to make every one of them feel like $1 million. It's not like you've got 100 people and you're like, oh my God. If you've got 4 people, easy for you to know their name, have a chat with them all, know their crew, tie in with them all, get to know everything. Like, you're not asking for like hospitality, like you're just asking for like, these guys are going out into the dark at night to run 100 miles. Like that's a big deal. It's no, it's not like they're just pissing around.
Lesley, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I was just going to say, though, that Mike's content in the middle of the night was top notch. So the point where he was like in a field hunting down cows, like that stuff that you're not, that's us as an audience getting our money's worth. I mean, on your behalf, Mike, I really thought that you did the race team a real credit there. So especially the cow, that was my high point.
Yeah, I'll get to that. It comes to mind, it felt like a cross between Tough Mudder and Squid Games at some point. Like just trying to survive to get to Perth. But in terms of the race, registration was a farce. 4 of us set off. It was 2 of us, myself and the lead boy, got lost within the first mile. We went the wrong way within a mile in. But sorted that out. But it was fine up to Tilly, fairly straightforward. But it's from Tilly that you go into the Ochils itself. Anyone that's been into the Ochils will know it can be quite a tough place to run about, even in good weather in the daylight. Thankfully, the weather was decent, but the Ochils in the dark, the paths are pretty hard to see if you know what you're looking for. But it's where everything went wrong. It's where you realize just how bad, for something that's labeled as being fully course marked, there was barely any course markings on it. So I had the GPX on my watch and my phone. There were 2 instances where my GPX was going straight on and the course markings were straight off to the side, over fences, across bridges and everything else. So we almost went that way. I think Jimmy spoke to the lead guy who was ahead of me at checkpoint 2, and he got lost a couple of times. I almost went the wrong way a few times. And we're not, like, this guy had done a Pennine Ultra. I'm not inexperienced in running at night on hills myself. And we're scratching our heads having to look at the map route kind of every 5 minutes to make sure we're even going the right way. But it was all right until that second checkpoint. But again, when you're putting on an event and you're choosing checkpoints that have no signal, so I'm having to rely on Jimmy and Andy. I've got no signal in the middle of the Ochils. They've got no signal at the checkpoint. One thing I didn't realize until afterwards was that there was no event team numbers. So, like AB and Les, you guys will know for Glasgow to Edinburgh, it says in your race briefs you've got to have the numbers of the race directors. If there's any issues, it's evidently AB doesn't. But for a lot of ultras, you should have the numbers of the race team, the event team, in case of an issue. Well, now you know, get that in. But there was no numbers for any of the event team on the emails or on the website. So I can't contact my support crew because they don't have signal at all. They don't even have signal. I also can't contact any event teams because they've not given us any numbers at any point. So you're in the middle of the night, it's pitch black, and if something goes wrong, you're kind of screwed. And also things like first aid kits, which are mandatory in a lot of ultras, were not for this either. So we weren't carrying first aid or anything else.
So can I just jump in there just to follow on for what Mike said? CP2 was at a fishery. We arrived and Mike was to be at us for, I don't know, let's say 7:30. So 8:10 rolls in, nobody's passed. 8:30, the first guy comes through. Then Mike comes in. This is like an hour later, so you're like, oh my God, where is he? And I said to the guy, there's a wee guy, Neil, for the event. It just kind of came to every station. He was the guy that transported the water. I'll speak about him a bit later. He's an absolute great guy. And anyway, I said, you didn't get a reception here, mate? He's like, aye, I know. I said, so how do we check where they are? They could be up there all dead. And how do I check? How do I phone somebody to tell them they're all dead? And he was just like, and then he just started talking about something else. And I was just, me and Andy just looked at each other like laughing, like CP2, no reception to phone anybody, no reception to check the runners. Like, you're just completely blind at that point, eh? Just hadn't a clue what was going on. You're just sitting there waiting in the pitch black for a light to come off the side of the hill. And like, just
looking GPX work.
And then like he talked like Mike alluded to, they said about like first aid kits and stuff. And I said to him there wasn't a sign of like a medic, but the answer I got was that the first 50 miles is self-supported, which is absolutely fine. But surely, I mean, I might be wrong if anybody's listening to this and can tell us otherwise, but surely if I put on a race and I've got 4 guys under my license doing that route and doing that race and my insurance, I've got an obligation to put on some kind of medical care if they're there. And I said, so what happens if something happens? And the guy's like, oh, we'll phone the guy in Perth to... I said, so how do you phone him? You've not got a reception. Andy's in Perth. I'd as well get my gear on and running up the hill to bring him down myself. And I was just like, and me and Andy were just looking at each other like, this is, and I'm like, this is, it's just, I don't know, eh? And then that's the point I just started taking notes on my phone of all this, like, stuff. Because it just was kind of like, folk, you just wouldn't believe it, eh? And having
we're kind of half laughing at it, kind of tongue in cheek, but it's very dangerous.
So there's guys running about in the night it was 2 degrees, pitch black, up the Ochils, which up the Ochils the conditions are horrific underfoot and it's just bit. So I wasn't even running and I was like, this is absolutely nuts. So
it doesn't really do much for your mentals. Obviously, we'll come to cut-offs and the impact that has in the conditions, but yeah, it just adds an extra layer of stress that you just don't want in those conditions.
I'm just sitting here listening to all this thinking, it sounds like a dream. I want to sign up next year. Go on my track record, why not? No, I'm just...
Well, I can give you a GPX that kind of half works, half doesn't. So yeah, it's about 20 miles. I start to struggle. There were more big hills. There's some tough climbs as rolling. And then I think the biggest navigational issue I had was around 28 miles in. So I left these guys at a 26-mile point at the third kind of checkpoint. And because the course markings had been so shit, my GPX had worked up to that point. I should have been on the right-hand side of this kind of ravine, stream, kind of cliff bit. My GPX was on the left-hand side of this, and there were no course markings to tell me different. So I followed this, and it's when I'm 0.2, 0.3 of a mile through thickets of spikes and dead wood, moss, trying not to fall down the edges, and realizing, shit, I should be on the other side of this kind of river going through, which I managed to get past, but that cost me another 15, 20 minutes. When it's 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm completely lost. Like, my GPX is off track. What's that?
Did you not just went for the river? You know, Gore-Tex.
I did for a little bit, but it's 2 o'clock in the morning. My GPX is not right. There's no course markings. I finally realized where I'm meant to be, but I can't physically actually get there because I needed to climb up a cliff bit. And it just kind of plays with your head at that point. Like, I was already tight for cutoffs because of the halfway point, and it just kind of puts you in the bin, bothering trying to push when you're already hurting. And then I think after the next checkpoint was when the fun and games, I decided to take a few Aussie videos going through the fields. Caught up with the boy that I kind of hopped around with second and third. I actually ran with him at Saltire for a lap at Saltire 24. But going through the fields, and I saw his headlight running back towards me. I mean, what's he fucking doing? Like, this is definitely the way. I mean, I'm not seeing any course markings, but this is the way. And he was shitting himself. It was like, oh my God, I just got charged down by a whole herd of cows. And he, like, the panic was real. And like, I can't see anything. I was like, cool, where are they? Like, I don't know. Like, it's a fucking herd. How do you not know? So he then went off, completely off to the side, and almost ran into another pack of cows, which you just turn your headlight to the side and you can just see a row of eyes illuminated that start mooing at you and get up. So it's like, shit, right, let's get out of this field, go out of that one. The course marking then bears right through a fence. There's no gate, there's no stile, just through this wire fence, which is also covered in barbed wire. So we're having to help each other over. There's twice I have to climb over barbed wire fences. Most of the gates through the fields were locked that you have to climb over. I say in one of the videos, some of the course markings were size of those Rice Krispie squares, kind of just so big. In the ground, not even illuminated. You'd get kind of one every fourth field. And it's not even a path, it's just a field. So they've taken a road down there and a road up there and thought, right, well, you just need to go through the fields to connect them. But you're climbing over, well, it says like Squid Games, you're climbing over everything to even get to anywhere in the early hours. Like, you can't run that.
Mike, is the other way? So once you get to your 50 miles, are you supposed to come back the way you came?
Yes.
I guess it's just easier in the daylight, or is it still a shit show on the way back?
I think that's a shit show any time of day you go across it. But it's the same route.
So they put a bit more context into that. I was checking how the fella that got to the halfway line, Jamie, if he managed to get any further, and he was on Instagram, and I messaged him saying, look, how did you get on? Because I couldn't see, it had stopped by the time I got back to look at his tracker. And that's when he told me, like, finishing that. He said, but the route on the way back, he said, look, nothing like the route he took on the way there. Completely different route, man. Because obviously in the day, like, you can see bits and you're like, oh, that's a path. That's obviously my path. But in the middle of the night, pitch black, you can't see anything. Eh? So he was saying that it just looked different during the day than it definitely did the one that he ran at night. So
it sounds like no one's recce'd this at night. They just assume it's just the same, but the other way around. So it must be fine.
Aye, but common sense, if you're putting on a race that's predominantly in the night, A4 bits of paper that are reflective with a massive arrow in them. Like, I'm not a race director, and I've never ran through the night, but that's what I would do. I'd go and put them maybe every 50, 60 metres, just an A4 bit of paper with an arrow. and it's reflective, or it doesn't even have to have an arrow, just something that catches your torch.
They did have reflective arrows on there, but they were pointing back the way for the 50-mile runners in case they hit the dark. None of the arrows that pointed on the outgoing ones for the 100s were reflective.
So
So
people
nothing
must
was.
have ran backwards, and you would have seen them.
It might have been actually quite fast there for me to do so. But
So-
yeah, it's kind of.
With all this, then the cut-off times are shocking. Then
Yeah, so I knew when I got to the guys at Bridge of Van Institute was the last checkpoint before just coming into Perth. It's what, 40, 41, 42 miles. Like I'm well behind the cut-offs to hit the halfway point in the time. I'd be looking at 11-minute miles, which I don't have it. Like my hips went early on, it's not happening. So, but I'd still rather get to the cut-off and get timed out rather than just DNF and give up at that point. But yeah, that last stretch didn't go as fast because my shin flared up. Kind of had phone calls and stuff to help, but my head torch ran out of battery. My phone or my watch ran out of battery. My headphones ran out of battery. Everything did. But yeah, the 13.5-hour cut-off for the halfway point in this. So to put it into context, the Highland Fling, which is 53 miles, about 7,000 feet, considering that's on well-marked paths through the day with about 700 other runners, has a 16-hour cut-off if you want to set out an hour before. Something like this, with all the conditions that we've just said, that's 13.5-hour cut-off when you should be going slower because you then need to turn around and do 52 miles back with around 8 to 8,300 feet of climbing. It's not, I say I'm not the best in the world at ultras, but I'm not bad at them either. And this is not, only 2 people out of 6 across 2 years have actually got past halfway. Not even just finished, just got past halfway.
Can I just jump on to something Mike said there about timing out? So you had to be at Perth by 7:30 in the morning. That was a halfway line. But what wound me and Andy up is you got to Perth and like it was at a gym, so it was in like a kind of an industrial estate. And like I said, they were starting a 50 there, and it was all great set up and yada yada. So the 50 guys came, and away they went. In came one of the 100 runners, and he set up, and then he went. And then we're there waiting on Mike. And then they started like shutting everything up. And there was two people there. You don't know who they are. I'm not going to say just in case the guys who organise are listening, but they were asked to lock the gates. And then I says, and they're like, "What are you doing here, James?" I says, "Well, we're waiting on Mike." And they're like, "Is nobody asked where he is or not?" I said, "No, they just give a shit. They've asked you to lock the gates. So we're going to go to the other side of the gates and just sit there and wait on Mike to come to a bit that's just, their race is just shut down and it's fucked off for the 50 milers." And they were like, "That is an absolute disgrace." I was like, "Nah, nobody even bothered to ask where it is or where he is, or is he all right? Is he going to manage to get here?" Like you would expect somebody for the organisation to at least hang back, say, "Oh, unlucky mate," whatever, yada yada, take your chip off you, take that off you, and then be like, "Thanks, by the way, thanks for giving it a crack, much appreciated." But just, whole place was shut up, padlock on the gate, gone. So we were like parked in a car out in the front of this industrial estate, just waiting on Mike rolling in, having timed out for their event. And I asked the guy, "What do you want us to do with your chip for your car, for your like the crew?" "Oh, you going to Stirling?" I was like, "Oh, I have to go and pick up my car." "I just leave it there." And so we all drove to Stirling. Nobody even there. I was like, "What the fuck?" So we phoned the guy and just put him behind the portal. What's like, this is mental.
Am I being silly here? How or why were the checkpoints for going to the 50 not the same as the way back?
So on the 100, you only really had one official checkpoint. The rest were just points where me and Andy could meet Mike, or we were allowed to meet him. You only had one official checkpoint where there was like 2 people for the organisation, but you didn't even have to. like check in with them. You didn't have to do anything. You could have ran past them. I could have met Mike a mile outside that checkpoint, put all his gear on, and fucking sprinted past them and I went to the hills, and
By the
they wouldn't have.
you could have just drove. If you'd
Aye,
took
or
a long route and just drove, you could have done it.
I could have like met Mike a mile outside the checkpoint, switched gear with him, and I could have ran half his race for him and gave him it back, and nobody would have even known.
I wish you'd have suggested
you know
that
what?
time to me. You could have saved me a lot of pain.
But there was like no marshals, or there was no like dibber, or no anything. It was just kind of like,
Even in the race sign up, though, they obviously had the 50-mile checkpoints planned out with the what 3 words, kind of links and all that stuff that's used, but there was no suggestion or anything mentioned about where should you meet throughout the night. It's just that thankfully, we all had the same idea of using the 50-mile checkpoints in the same locations going out for the support crew so that they then know where they were coming back. But there was no suggestion of that in any of the race briefs.
So to sum up then, would we recommend this race for next year to people? Apart from Les, because she's obviously not wired, right?
can I say
Lovely.
something though? Sorry, on you go, Mike. You go.
No, you go.
No, he just absolutely can event and bar it. Like, there's a couple of good things. The guy Neil, who he's on their website as the guy that transports your drop bags, but I said to the guy at the end, you need to put him as like vice race director or something, because he's at every checkpoint, he's at every bit, he's running around daft, like he's trying to help people in the middle of the night, because he does runs as well. He did like Glenmore, he's done other runs, so he obviously knows the script. So he's obviously trying to help where he can. So there's guys like him are great. You've got a race that goes over like potentially amazing scenery or hard terrain, starting at a beautiful location in Stirling. It's at a time of the year where you're not competing with anything, so you could grab a huge crowd of people around like Central, Glasgow, and all that kind of area, and you could have on your hands an absolute amazing race. But I can only see that happening in a couple of ways. They either put more effort and get more volunteers specifically just for the 100 and treat it as they do with the 50, and give people a bit more leeway with the cut-offs so they can actually complete it, or you market it as one of the toughest ultras going around and ask people if they're up for the challenge of actually trying to do it. That, to me, that's the only 2 ways you can do it. But I mean, they've got the chance there of making that absolutely amazing. Like, speak to the uni, get them to open up some of the buildings to allow people to go inside at the start of the race and make it a bit more of a fanfare. But for that, you just need to put a bit of effort in and ask for more volunteers for the 100-miler, because they will be out there. Or even
I don't
tie
think
it.
anyone would. Sorry, Jimmy. I don't think anyone would put their name to that in its current guys.
Aye, correct. Aye.
No danger. Southern Unis. So show me your methods and your safety things, and where's the checkpoints? But nah, catchy. We could probably talk about this one all night, but we've got another ultra to be discussing, one that we've got 4 of the guys are involved in. Les, we'll bring you back in since you know how to work the microphone.
Hi.
How's your training been going?
Fine. I mean, I don't have those race numbers saved yet, but like AB looked like he was pure sliding on in there a minute ago, so I'm sure he's got it sorted. My training's been okay. I use Loch Ness 24 as a bit of like a tester, just to kind of see what I was like over a bit of endurance after the summer of marathons. Obviously the terrain at Loch Ness is totally different to that of the canal, so it's much hillier and it's, you know, kind of more trail. But like checkpoint wise, it's similar. Like Loch Ness is 7.5k each loop. I had my tent at the start line, so that was like my checkpoint, and I didn't really come off much. And if I did, it was like a quick like water fill up or whatever. So I used that, and then like obviously I had to do a little bit of recovery after it. But then in the weekends, so that was last month, the weekends in August, so the weekends between then and now, in true me style, I had something ridiculous planned like every weekend. Like fitness competitions, hill walks, like the Pacing at the Great North Run. So there's always something. So obviously, being not a seasoned ultra runner at all, or someone who trains that way, I knew that you had to have like back-to-back weekends, so you're covering the mileage on fatigued legs, that sort of thing. So I was just using like whatever I was doing that I had booked on the Saturday, and then doubling that up on the Sunday with like a 20 miler or whatever, going out and running on fatigue legs. So that's kind of what my trainings looked like from Loch Ness to now. It's just going to be trial and error. Like, I've done what I could with the time that I had and the fitness that I've got. I'm just wasn't to go and see what my wee body can go and do. So no expectations. But if I could come in like before dinner time, I'd be quite happy.
Just see if you can keep up with Abe, who I wonder if his mic's working now. Are you back in the game?
I think that's me now. Is that me?
There he is. Right.
But to be honest, training was all right. I think personally, apart from doing the 50 odd K with Dale, I think I've kind of trained for like a half or a full marathon, and the distances are challenging enough, hard to do them. But I don't think I've done the training for this kind of distance. But I'm fit. I like to push myself. That's why I like running. So I'm going to give it my best come Saturday. Hook or crook, I'll go over the finish line. So buzzing for it now. To be fair, I've done a wee run this today, and the buzz like all I can think about is just coming down the stairs of the water leaf and just getting to that finish line. I'm absolutely buzzing for it.
So yesterday I went and did train and run along the Union Canal. So I've obviously ran on the Forth and Clyde loads, but I'd never ran on that bit of the canal. And like, I was like a kid in the sweetie shop yesterday, right? And I know like it's just a canal and it's like, a bit of tarmac with some autumn leaves. But yesterday I was like getting that whole, oh, I can't wait for this, like proper like shivers down my spine and all this like ridiculous nonsense. But I think like Saturday I had sat and like loosely planned out checkpoint plans and kind of rough time estimates and all that, and just like I'd got in my head. So doing that yesterday just took me back out of my head again, and like, yeah, loved it. So I think after yesterday's run, I'm just really excited now to like go and do it and chat to folk along the way, hopefully.
Jimmy, are you inspired now from last week's shambles? Are you wanting to go out and show how to run a proper ultra?
This GB Ultras are a level, eh? Like everything's slick, organised. You get your money's worth. It's like nothing's too much hassle for them. It's like they know how to put an event on, eh? And I'm looking forward to it. I'll be different this time. That's the one I did last year was my first ever ultra. Well, it was actually my first ever race over a half marathon. So this year I think I'm a bit more experienced, and I know how to feel better, and I know how my body works over that distance, and more so I know I can do it, eh? Because I've recently done Ultra Scotland the same distance over the hills. So although this is flat and people think it's easy, this is harder in a different way because you're just battering the same muscles all the time. Whereas if you're running hills and stuff, you get a bit of a break and different like gradients and different muscles, whereas this is just relentless. It's a whole different type of so. But it's good though. It's good. It's hard running past your house and thinking I could just can this. Can this and go home.
Speaking about sore, I was just thinking, Mike, you got a wee last minute sign up. Are you going to be in a position to be running this one, or are you playing it by ear?
I'll be in it. I don't want to, as I say, that's the first DNF. I don't want to finish the year on the DNF, so this will be the last event. I need to just go back to basics after it and rebuild. But no, my legs are fine. I have a lot of pain in the front of my left shin at the end of this last weekend, which I had at the end of Loch Ness, but that's settling down. The rest of my legs are fine. My body's fine, so there's no issues with anything else. But I'm not finishing the year on that DNF, so it's getting done regardless.
Glad to hear it. You boys that have done it before, any tips for the first timers running this event?
Take your time at the aid stations. There's a lot of food available, and as Jimmy said, with kind of using various muscle groups, one thing I found is that the hams and the hips will get hit hard. So just have a routine before it kicks in of just getting them stretched out, even just a minute, 2 minutes, just get them loosened off as you go through those checkpoints. Because otherwise, once you get to that 40-50 mil mark, it kicks in.
I can do a little squat session if you're up for that, like at the checkpoints. How does that sound?
Are you bringing kettlebells and everything else as well?
No, just
Real sorry for the day now, her squatting.
obviously squatting. That'll help the hips and the glutes, no bother.
Sure, you'll get more folks signing up for Ochil 100 than doing that.
I'm going to pass on that at the checkpoints, but the only things I've got are so not a lot of people know this, but when you go into the Transport Museum, as soon as you go in the doors, there's toilets to your right. So I don't know if I should say this because obviously the thousands of people that will be listening to this prior to going, see if you go up the very back into the right, there's another toilet that nobody knows about. That's probably the best.
That's my men's 10K toilet.
That's probably the best bit of advice I can give you because everybody queues. The queues for the toilet at the front are mental, but if you go up the back, there's never anybody there because nobody knows about it. And secondly, when you get to Linlithgow, make sure you're stocked up and ready to rock because you'll be tired at that point. And for there to Raffle is, I think it's a half marathon. And what I do at that point is I take a additional soft flask, just an empty one that I carry in the top of my pack. And when I get to there, I fill my 2 bottles up with water or whatever it is you've got. And they will fill the other one up if you want with flat, full fat cola. So I have 3 bottles for that part of the journey. And cola, flat cola during a race will absolutely change your world. I'm telling you, will change your world.
Nice one. Well, conscious of the time with this one, guys, we've got, or we had at the weekend, we had a Loch Ness Marathon. Don't know if Jace, you've got a wee list of people to run through that we...
Yeah, just got a wee couple. We've got the 5K. We had Big Al from Team Alexis Rose. I don't know if anybody's seen his videos of the other guys in the Team Alexis Rose crossing the line. I have nothing to say about him other than he's brilliant. Like, he's just what a voice in the community is in terms of cheering people on and stuff like that. He would honestly, he would cheer on a game of Tiddlywinks if you were playing. We had Lee Campbell. He completed the trilogy. He'd done a 10K Inverness, and we had Mr. Steve. Mr. Steve runs, great supporter of the podcast. Obviously, always give this a wee mention. 3:38, which was, I think, on that course, I would say that's impressive. I know, Les, as well, you said you'd done 3:37, so I think I don't think he was too happy with it, but he kind of said the hill's done him at the end. We had Stuart runs a lot.
That he does.
Well done. He is coming back from his calf injury. I think he's obviously never maybe had the block that he expected. He was in the Newton chat kind of during the race, in a bit of pain and discomfort, and he got over cross line in 4:34. We also had Ali from Newton in 4:43, sorry, and we had Peta NC runs was 6:19. That was her first marathon, and I think I seen she's actually signed up for the free run the Blades on the way back home after the marathon. So she obviously got the bug for it. That's a fair jump. So I'll be looking forward to seeing what she does next year. And we had one of AB's mates, Lyle. Lyle VDM on Instagram, he is 3:49, and I'm assuming that was his first marathon. AB, is that right?
I believe he's done him and his partner in Edinburgh last year. Yeah.
I was going to say 3:49 for a first marathon is a decent time. And we also had a couple of guys over in the Berlin Marathon. We had Joanne Thorburn, obviously my running club president. She crossed line 3:31. She did have a wee wobble towards the end as well, and she done really well digging that out at the end. And we had Ian Smith, who is at Wahey.runner. He done Berlin in 3:15. If nobody follows, if you don't follow Ian, I suggest you do. His content's superb. He starts every single reel by shouting "Wahey," and I will never stop pissing myself laughing every time I watch a reel and he starts it with that. Really good content and just a top class guy, and he's in a magnificent beard as well. So that is my wee roundup for the week, mate.
Superb. And you are racing this weekend? Jace?
I am racing. I am attending Cardiff Half Marathon. Fly out to Bristol on Saturday, stay overnight with Danny from Newton as well, Danny May.
Who's it?
And yeah, and the plan is beat the Chorus again. So we are, I'm just going to actually get it up and see what it's saying this very second on the fitness. And the beat the Chorus says 1:35:24, which is an average pace of 4:31, which I am very confident I can beat.
Happy days. Well, good luck with that.
Thank you.
Right, fun. I'm sure there's lots of doing the Great Scottish Run at the weekend. I'm not even going to try and start name dropping there. I'll be taking part there. I'm in the purple wave behind the elites for some reason. I think I've been mixed up. I'm actually quite glad because it's like a 10 o'clock start. I see some starts at like 12 o'clock. So yeah, I'm glad I'm in early. You want to come in, Lesley?
Yeah, I actually got offered 2 different pacer times for the Great Scottish Run this weekend on the Sunday, and spent a great deal of time deliberating over whether I should take them or not. But just want to put out there to all the people who were super excited at the fact that I was going to get them a PB, that I was in fact being a sensible human this weekend and only running the 92k. So
I'm shocked.
I know, so am I actually. Shock.
Well, Abe said he was going to consider running the half as well, so I didn't see an issue why the two is couldn't go and get it.
As you recommend that?
I'm going straight to the pub after. As soon as I cross Stockton Park, I'm going straight to the pub and that'll be me till the early hours of the morning. That's my plan.
That sounds like a good plan. Well, good luck to everyone racing this weekend. It's going to be good fun catching up on next week's show, see how we got on. But just leaves me to thank Jace.
Thank you.
Thanks, AB.
Thank you for having a good race, pal.
Can everybody just make sure they enjoy their runs as well?
Yes. Finish lines, not finish times, if that's your thing. Thanks, Mike, who's having a bit of an
Thank
issue
you.
just now. There he is.
I'm here.
Thanks, thanks, Jimmy.
Thank you.
And very special thank you to Les for coming on. It's great to have you.
Thank you, Lesley.
Thank you, Lesley. See you Friday for a pizza and pasta.
Ooh, ooh.
All right, cheers, guys.
So,
Love you. Bye.
bye-bye.
Yeah.